My dad texted me at 2 a.m. Grab your brother and run. Don't trust your mother. So I did. The bright phone screen hurt my eyes in my dark room. 3 sentences, 12 words. At first I was confused, but then suddenly I understood exactly what they meant. My father had been in Chicago for a structural engineering conference for 4 days, the kind of trip he took quarterly for his firm. He was the definition of professional and predictable, a man who color-coded his sock drawer and never let the gas tank drop below half. He never texted after 9:30 p.m., never used urgent language, and certainly never said anything that would alarm us. This message violated everything I knew about my careful, measured father, which meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. I was 17 and responsible enough to know the difference between an adult overreacting and an adult who was genuinely terrified. This text read like genuine terror compressed into digital font. I threw off my duvet and scrambled out of bed, grabbing clothes from the floor, jeans and a hoodie, pulling them on while my brain tried to process what "don't trust your mother" could possibly mean. Mom was downstairs in her home office, where I'd left her an hour ago, working late on her logistics accounts and drinking herbal tea like she did most nights. Normal, suburban mother behavior. Nothing threatening or suspicious. Except Dad wouldn't send this message without reason. And the specificity of grabbing my brother and running suggested immediate danger, not a paranoid delusion. I shoved my feet into sneakers and grabbed my backpack, dumping out my AP history textbook and gym clothes, replacing them with my laptop, a portable charger, and the emergency cash I kept hidden in a tin box in my bottom drawer, for reasons I'd never quite articulated. $400 in mixed bills from summer lifeguarding jobs that suddenly felt like the most important thing I owned. My brother, Leo, was 10 and slept like the dead, completely undisturbed by my frantic movement across the hall. I crept into the hallway and eased open his door, wincing when the floorboards groaned under my weight. He was buried under a pile of Star Wars blankets, breathing in the steady rhythm of deep sleep. Waking him quietly would be difficult, but waking him loudly would alert Mom downstairs, and Dad's message had been explicit about not trusting her. I knelt beside Leo's bed and pressed my hand firmly over his mouth before shaking his shoulder. His eyes flew open in panic, and I felt him try to shout against my palm. I put my finger to my lips and whispered directly into his ear, barely audible even in the silent room. "Dad sent emergency message. We need to leave right now, without Mom knowing. I'll explain everything once we're safe, but you have to trust me and stay completely silent." Leo's eyes were huge behind his messy hair, filled with fear and confusion, but he nodded slowly against my hand. I released his mouth and he sat up, reaching for his glasses on the nightstand. I'd already grabbed clothes from his hamper, jeans and a sweatshirt that I pressed into his hands while gesturing urgently for him to change. He pulled the clothes on over his pajamas, his hands shaking, and I helped him shove his feet into his shoes without bothering to tie the laces properly. The window in Leo's room faced the side yard and opened onto the flat roof of the garage. It was a route I'd used a few times to sneak out, but never with a 10-year-old in tow. I slid the sash up with practiced ease, praying the old wood wouldn't screech, and looked out at the drop to the trellis below. Not ideal, but manageable. I went out first to guide him, signaling for him to follow. Leo hesitated at the sill, looking down at the dark garden with visible fear. I gripped his ankles and helped him slide down to the roof, then guided him to the trellis. We climbed down, the wood digging into my palms, and dropped into the mulch of the flower beds with a soft thud. "Where are we going?" Leo whispered, his voice trembling. "Just run," I whispered back, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the back fence. Quietly. We had maybe minutes before Mom checked on us or heard something suspicious. The fence was 6 feet of privacy wood that I scaled by stepping on the crossbeam, pulling myself over and dropping into the neighbor's yard. Leo struggled with the height, so I had to hoist him up and catch him as he tumbled down beside me. We ran through 3 backyards, dodging motion sensor lights and garden gnomes, before emerging onto a street 2 blocks from our house. Both of us were breathing hard. Only then did I pull out my phone and read Dad's message again, looking for details I'd missed in my panic. The timestamp showed 2:03 a.m., sent 9 minutes ago. No follow-up messages, no missed calls, just those 3 sentences hanging in space, like a grenade. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. His professional, outgoing message was incongruous with the emergency he had declared. My brother was pulling at my sleeve, demanding explanations I didn't have. What does he mean, don't trust Mom? Did they get in a fight? I don't know yet, Leo, but Dad wouldn't say this unless it was serious. We need to get somewhere safe and figure out what's going on. I was trying to sound calm and in control, despite having no plan beyond getting away from our house. We were standing on a residential street at 2:15 in the morning with nowhere to go and no way to contact the one parent who'd warned us to run. My phone buzzed with a new text, this time from Mom. Kids, I just checked your rooms. Where are you? The casual tone felt wrong given the circumstances, like she was pretending nothing unusual was happening. Or maybe nothing unusual was happening from her perspective. Maybe Dad's message was the aberration and Mom was genuinely confused about her missing children. But I kept thinking about those 12 words, the specificity of the warning, and the fact that Dad's phone was now off. Another text from Mom appeared before I could decide how to respond. This isn't Sunny. Come home right now or I'm calling the police. The threat landed strangely. What would she tell the police? That her daughter and son had left the house at night? We weren't missing or kidnapped. We'd left voluntarily, based on our father's warning. Unless Mom had reasons to want police involvement or reasons to avoid it, the threat felt like a bluff to force us back under her control. Leo was crying quietly now, the kind of scared tears that come from being 10 and having your normal life explode in the middle of the night. I put my arm around his shoulders and kept walking, moving us toward the 24-hour diner on Main Street about 4 blocks away. At least there we'd have lights and potential witnesses, some minimal safety while I figured out the next steps. My phone kept buzzing with messages from Mom, each one escalating in tone from confused to angry to threatening. The diner was nearly empty except for a trucker eating pie at the counter and a waitress refilling napkin dispensers. Leo and I slid into a booth in the back corner, trying to look casual despite being 2 kids alone at 2:30 a.m. I called Dad again with the same result, straight to voicemail. His phone was definitely powered off. I tried texting instead, asking for more information, explaining we'd gotten out but needed to know what was happening. My phone rang and Mom's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it through 3 rings before answering, putting it on speaker so Leo could hear. Maya. Her voice came through tight, with barely controlled emotion. Thank God! Where are you? What is going on? I wake up and both my children are gone. Windows open. You're not answering texts. You're scaring me, honey. She sounded genuinely frightened and confused. Nothing in her tone suggested danger or threat, but Dad's message kept echoing in my mind, the urgency and specificity that had sent us running. I said, Dad texted us. He said to leave the house and not trust you. We need to know why he'd say that. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then Mom laughed. It was a brittle sound that raised every hair on my neck. Your father texted you at 2 in the morning telling you to run away from me? That's insane, Maya. He's in Chicago at a conference, probably drunk at the hotel bar. He doesn't know what he's saying. But I'd never seen Dad drunk in my life. He barely drank even at weddings. And the message hadn't read drunk. It read terrified. Why would he specifically say not to trust you? What is he afraid you're going to do? Mom's breathing got faster on the line. When she spoke again, her voice had changed into something harder. Listen to me very carefully, Maya. Your father is having some kind of mental break. He's been acting paranoid for weeks, saying strange things, accusing me of things that aren't true. I didn't want to worry you kids, but he's been seeing a therapist for delusions. Whatever he told you is part of that. You need to come home right now so we can handle this as a family. The explanation sounded reasonable, except for the timing. If Dad had been delusional for weeks, why send the emergency text tonight? Why turn off his phone after sending it if he was just drunk and confused? And why did Mom's voice sound wrong, like she was performing concern rather than feeling it? I looked at Leo and saw my own doubt reflected in his expression. I want to talk to Dad first. I want to hear from him that he's okay and that the message was a mistake. Then we'll come home. Mom made a frustrated sound and I heard movement on her end. Footsteps and the jingle of car keys. Fine, stay where you are and I'll come get you. We'll call Dad together from the car and sort this out. Where are you exactly? Every instinct I had screamed not to tell her, not to give up our location until I understood what was happening.
We're at a friend's house. We'll come home when we've talked to Dad. I hung up before she could respond and immediately powered off my phone, suddenly paranoid about location tracking. Leo watched me, terrified. "Is Dad crazy?" he asked, his voice shaking. "No," I said, though I wasn't sure. "Dad is the sanest person we know. Mom is the one acting weird." I turned my phone back on just to check for messages from Dad. Instead, a text came through from an unknown number. "This is Special Agent Eris Thorne with the FBI. Your father asked me to contact you if anything happened to him. Call this number immediately from a secure line. Do not go home. Do not trust local police." The message was so unexpected, so outside the realm of normal possibility, that I read it 3 times before my brain accepted the words. FBI involvement suggested crimes way beyond family drama. It suggested Dad's warning had been about something bigger than mental breaks or marital problems. Leo read over my shoulder, and his face went even paler. Why would Dad be talking to the FBI? What did Mom do? He was asking the questions I was thinking but couldn't voice. I called the number from the message, my hands trembling. A man answered on the second ring, his voice professional and alert despite the hour. "This is Agent Thorne. Who am I speaking with?" "This is Maya Miller. You sent a message about my father, David Miller. He texted us tonight telling us to leave our house and not trust our mother. We need to know what's happening." Agent Thorne was quiet for a moment, and I heard keyboard clicking in the background. "Your father has been cooperating with a federal investigation into money laundering for the past 6 months. He discovered evidence that your mother is using her logistics company to move funds for a criminal organization. We've been building a case, but our surveillance team lost contact with your father." The words landed like physical blows. Mom wasn't just having marital problems. She was a criminal under federal investigation. Dad had been secretly working with the FBI, gathering evidence against his own wife, and something had gone wrong tonight that triggered his emergency warning. Where is he now? Is he safe? We don't know, Thorne admitted. He was supposed to check in 3 hours ago from his hotel in Chicago and didn't. His phone location last pinged at the hotel, then went offline. We have agents checking the hotel now, but his failure to communicate, combined with that text to you, suggests he believed himself to be in immediate danger. What kind of danger? Why would Mom hurt him? The people your mother is working with are not the kind to leave witnesses. If they learned your father was cooperating, he would become a liability. And if they've gotten to him, you and your brother are potential leverage. That's why his message told you to run. The full weight of danger settled over me. We weren't running from normal family dysfunction. We were running from people who murdered witnesses to financial crimes. What do we do? Where do we go? I need you to get to the federal building downtown. It's about 5 miles from where you live. Do not use credit cards. Do not use rideshare apps that track your location. If you see your mother, run. I hung up and relayed everything to Leo. At 10 years old, he was processing that our mother was a criminal. Our father was missing and potentially dead, and we were running for our lives. We couldn't walk 5 miles exposed on the main roads. I spotted a taxi idling near the train station across the street. We ran over, jumping into the back seat. I handed the driver a wad of 20s from my Tim box. "Just drive," I said. "Head downtown. Keep off the main highway if you can." The driver, an older man in a faded cap, looked at me skeptically, but took the cash. "Trouble at home?" "Something like that," I muttered. We had made it maybe 3 miles when headlights appeared behind us, coming up fast. The taxi driver noticed and swore, accelerating slightly. "Some jerk has been tailing us since the diner, high beams on and everything." I twisted around to look. It was a black Range Rover. Even through the glare, I recognized the custom grille. "That's our mother," I said to the driver, my voice rising in panic. "She's dangerous. We need to lose her." He looked at me in the rearview mirror like I was crazy, until Mom's SUV rammed us from behind. The impact threw Leo and me forward against the front seats. The driver swore louder and floored it. The old sedan responded sluggishly as Mom hit us again. We were on a semi-industrial road now, warehouses lining the dark street. Exactly the wrong place for a chase scene. Mom pulled alongside us. I could see her clearly now through the passenger window. Her face was twisted into something I didn't recognize. Cold, calculated, and furious. She swerved, slamming the side of her heavy SUV into the taxi. "She's trying to run us off the road!" Leo screamed. The taxi driver was fighting the wheel, tires screeching as he tried to maintain control. "Is she crazy?" he yelled. Mom made one more hard slam, clipping the taxi's rear fender. The car spun out, rotating twice before sliding off the road and crashing through a chain-link fence into a construction yard. The impact was jarring, my head connecting with the window hard enough to see stars. Steam hissed from the taxi's radiator. The driver was slumped over the wheel, dazed. Leo was crying beside me, clutching his arm. "Move!" I shouted, grabbing Leo. I kicked open the dented door and dragged him out into the mud. Mom's SUV screeched to a halt at the break in the fence. I watched her climb out, walking toward our crashed taxi with purpose. She wasn't rushing like a worried mother. She was moving like a predator. "Maya, Leo," she shouted, her voice echoing off the unfinished concrete structures. "Stop this right now. I'm trying to protect you. The FBI is lying. Your father is lying." But her actions didn't match her words. She had just rammed a car with her children inside. I dragged Leo behind a stack of pallets. "We have to get to the other side of the yard," I whispered to Leo. "There's a main road there. Police." We scrambled through the mud and darkness, stumbling over debris. Behind us, I heard Mom scrambling over the wreckage. She was coming for us. We reached a half-built concrete structure and ducked inside. I could hear sirens in the distance now. The taxi driver or a witness must have called 911. Mom must have heard them too. "Kids, don't be stupid. Come out." Her voice was close. I spotted a gap in the construction fencing on the far side. "On 3, I whispered to Leo. "Run as fast as you can." We bolted. Mom saw us and sprinted, closing the distance with terrifying speed. She grabbed my backpack, yanking me back. I slipped out of the straps, leaving the bag in her hands, and kept running. We burst onto the main road just as 3 police cruisers converged on the scene, lights blindingly bright. We threw our hands up, screaming for help. Mom stopped at the edge of the construction darkness. She looked at the police, looked at us, and made a calculation. She turned and vanished back into the shadows just before the officers reached us. I explained everything in a rush to the skepticism of the patrol officers until I mentioned Agent Thorne and showed them the text. 20 minutes later, black SUVs arrived. Agent Thorne was a tall man with a scar through his eyebrow. He wrapped emergency blankets around us and put us in the back of his vehicle. "Your father is alive," he said immediately, and the knot in my chest loosened slightly. He was attacked in his hotel room, but he fought them off and escaped. He's in protective custody. Your mother's associates failed to kill him, so they shifted to targeting you too, hoping to use you as leverage to stop him from testifying. "Where is Mom?" asked Leo, his voice tiny. "She fled," Thorne said grimly. "But we have warrants out. She won't get far." We were taken to the field office, processed and given hot chocolate that tasted like ash. Dad arrived as the sun was coming up. He looked terrible. Face bruised, arm in a sling, moving like his ribs were broken. But when he saw us, he broke down, pulling us into a fierce and painful hug. "I'm so sorry," he sobbed into my shoulder. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect you without you knowing." The full story came out later. Mom had been laundering money for a cartel for 5 years. Dad had found out by accident 3 months ago and had gone to the FBI. He had been living a double life, gathering evidence against the woman he slept next to, all to build a case that would put her away forever. The trial was 8 months later. Mom was caught in Mexico trying to buy a fake passport. She received 30 years for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. She never looked at us during the trial. The woman in the defendant's chair was a stranger wearing my mother's face. Leo and I live with Dad now, in a different state, under partial witness protection. Dad runs a small hardware store. He's different. Jumpy, less organized, more open with his feelings. We're all in therapy, trying to learn how to trust again after the person who was supposed to protect us
tried to destroy us. I still have the screenshot of the text.
Grab your brother and run. Don't trust your mother. It was the most terrifying thing I ever read. But looking back, I realize it was the only time my father broke his own rules. It was an act of desperate, terrifying love, and it was the only reason we were still breathing. If you enjoyed this story, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.